Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, karibu sana to this channel where at the moment there is no consistent uploading schedule, but we are showing up either way. So in today's video, I want to be sharing something with you guys, bi'idhnillah. So that's something that is academically related and it's going to trigger me and most of you guys. So in the first few minutes, if you are triggered and you're not in the right mental space to actually hear this conversation or like have this conversation, take a break, just come back when you're ready for it. And also just to tell you guys, I don't know if you can hear a change in my voice. Okay, if you're new, how would you know? Maybe watch the previous video and then come to this one is when you kind of notice, unless you're very keen. But I'm sort of developing a bad sore throat. I've been having it throughout the entire day and it's been worsening progressively throughout the entire day, and I'll just be taking breaks and sipping some water. So the thing is, for most people, I included, of course, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we have been trained to believe that our grades are everything. You get an A, excellent. You get a B, excellent. You get a C, excellent. And whatever cadre or like whatever bar you have placed this grade in your life, at some point, alhamdulillah, society has tricked us. I would say not necessarily tricked us, but made us believe that actually these grades matter more than they do. Now, like I said, this is a very triggering topic, and especially if you're watching this and you're a parent, you're watching this and you're a teacher, you're watching this and you're a lecturer somewhere. Some of you guys are really perpetuating this thing and actually causing more trouble than good to the society. I know I'm purely speaking this from one point of view, but you guys hear me out. So I'm saying this, like, for the most part, a lot of us have been made to believe that actually grades matter more than everything else. While success in academia is specifically like is a very nice thing to have, actually very nice thing to have, and the feeling of it is usually very much, you know, celebrated, and it's usually very overwhelming at times for those people who are not doing so much, who are really well. And I'm not saying this from a point of kukemea or from a point of condemning or like from a point of shaming people who celebrate their successes or people who actually make open or like publicize whatever grades they're getting and use that as a point of definition for their lives or like for their success and everything. I'm actually not coming from that area. I'm coming from the point of like we need to shift the dynamic in terms of how we look at these grades and how we interact with them. I know a lot of jargon, I'm pouring a lot of jargon, but hear me out. Everything is going to make sense as we go into the video. You could see even in how the news are perpetuated during the times of results being released. And mind you, it's not just in Kenya. It's like in Kenya when KCSE, previously KCSE and KCPE results were being released, everything used to be just, you know, like so much made out of a big deal that every broadcasting channel would literally shift whatever they're doing to broadcast the results. Like I'm saying, it's a good thing to celebrate successes. It's a good thing to showcase the metrics and the performances and the statistics of how people are doing. But the way in which we have been taking this thing has been perpetuating a message that is not really healthy considering the mental health of students. Now that's one. Considering again, like I was saying, it's not just Kenya. If you look at the UK, for example, the days in which GCSE results are released, it's also a very big deal. The day in which I think campus, not really campus, but university acceptances are being released all over the country, it's usually such a big deal. And also in Kenya, it's usually such a big deal because it's like a make or break kind of moment. Now, I personally, someone who has gone through the 844 education system, if you don't know what the 844 means and you are really lost, let's take a moment to just, why are you lost? But anyways, if you don't know what the 844 means, it basically means the 8 years of wow, subhanallah, I have completed my 844. Wow, we'll come and deal with that later on. But like alhamdulillah, the 8 years are like 8 years of primary school, and then the 4 years of high school, and then the 4 years are the 4 years, the last 4 is the 4 years in university. As somebody who has gone through this pipeline and somebody who has gone through this system, alhamdulillah, I can say alhamdulillah, Allahumma lakal hamd, I've gone through it successfully, alhamdulillah. Of course, with academia comes a lot of challenges, both academic wise and non-academic, but alhamdulillah, for me my journey was, I would say, overall and generally smooth, Allahumma lakal hamd. And I pray for everyone who is watching this video or listening to this video and they're going through something in their academic journey, bi'idhnillah, Mwenyezi Mungu awafanyie sahali, Mwenyezi Mungu awatatulie matatizo yenu, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you guys, and for us, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, in the future as well. Of course, for those who are going to pursue their masters and whatever academic journeys we are going to take, bi'idhnillah, in the future, Mwenyezi Mungu atufanyie wepesi, atufanyie sahali, atujalie yani من الفائزين وممن يعني amongst those who their journeys will be easy and smooth بإذن الله تبارك وتعالى. So, like I was saying, as somebody who has gone through this pipeline, alhamdulillah, smoothly, I would say I personally have fallen into the belief system of using grades to actually define a lot of who I am as a person. And I'm not saying that is the perspective that I currently have, or like the perspective that I'm trying to perpetuate, but it's something I've come to notice throughout my academic journey, and it's something I have really paid attention to, and some things and some events have happened during my academic journey that have led me to actually shift in my perspective and actually think about these things in a very different manner, and that is what I want us to talk about today. If you look at, like, for example, another example I will give for the people who are going previously, that is, I don't know how the system is right now. I'm really trying so hard to sort of acclimate myself towards knowing like how the processes are in terms of going from junior high school to senior high school, from the PP1s, PP2s to grade 1, grade 6 up to junior high school. I don't know what the transition necessarily involves, but like I do know for a fact that for us people who have gone through the previous 844 pipeline, or maybe 845, 846 system, for us it used to be the people who got the good grades in KCSE, that is after finishing the primary school, class 8. If you got the best grades, if you got the best marks, you would go to the best schools, of course. And if you finish, for example, high school and you got the good grades, you got the best grades, of course you're going to go to the best unis, and of course you're going to pay less money in terms of like school fees and expenses, because you would get benefits that otherwise other students normally wouldn't get. And this is quite problematic in terms of what it is actually trying to perpetuate. But then who are we to blame? Because it's not a bad thing that people who really worked hard to get those really, of course bi tawfiq Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not a bad thing that people who really worked hard to get those grades and those marks are going to the good schools, you know. But one thing, alhamdulillah, Allahumma lakal hamd, I really got exposed to from a very young age, Allahumma lakal hamd. I remember being in primary school when we got a guest speaker come to our primary school, and then they were saying something, they sort of like, I think it's something I read in a book or something, in primary school, where they say like, places don't make people, people make places. And mind you, this was my second primary school. Just for context, I did study in 3 primary schools. So like when I was in my second primary school, before shifting to the third, I already had a preformed mindset that I knew whenever I wherever I go, whether I go to a good school, whether I go to necessarily not a good school, it didn't really matter to me, because I knew that I was the price and not that the school was the price. I was the value and the school was just adding on to me. Of course, if you're going to be surrounded with successful people, like what people say, show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. Tell me what you eat, I'll tell you who you are. And the likes of, if you're surrounded by 4 successful people, you're soon going to be the 5th. If you're surrounded by 4 smokers, you're soon going to be the 5th. That is actually true. Environments have influence, but in terms of, generally speaking, in terms of having the most impact, it doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, you went to a very good school, it means that automatically you're going to come out of it with a very good grade. You should look at the statistics of these so-called good schools. They generally do perform really well, Allahumma lakal hamd, mashallah, and it's really true. They produce creme de la creme of the country. They produce the best physicians, they produce the best, for example, I would say accountants. They produce people with the best grades, they produce people with the best marks, obviously, but then it doesn't mean that the entire picture of that school is that everybody is success in that matter. I will give you guys a very, very good example. There are schools that you cannot get into unless you do a pre-entry interview, and some of these schools, if you look at the statistics, yes, they will be biased, because if you're telling me that I cannot enter the school until I pass an interview, which you as a school have already made, it means if I pass the interview, my level of understanding, or like my level of capturing or understanding the information, is already set at a certain caliber. So you expect me that when you teach me in class, I'll be able to understand. I'll be able to understand and decode the information that you're giving me and memorize it and understand it, and being able to apply it in exams in a certain way that is actually going to lead me to be successful. So with that kind of bias, am I expecting this school to really perform really badly or really well? You guys, this is a lot of information, but this is quite a lot, you guys, but there's a lot to debunk, there's a lot to actually talk about our educational system. But I'm just trying to tell you guys something here, that this belief that our grades, we hold our grades so high that mtoto wangu mfano ampata A alipomaliza KCSE, mtoto wangu ampata B- mfano, mtoto wangu ampata C+, mashallah, amkwenda university. You know, there is no problem in actually celebrating the success, especially if the journey leading towards that success was really, really stressful, or like it was really hard, and everybody around you understands and like has actually seen firsthand, like you have gone through a lot, you have gone through a lot of troubles, ups and downs, here's and there's, to actually achieve that particular grade. There's absolutely no bad thing, or like hakuna shida yote to celebrate your success, even if you didn't go through the problem, even if you literally had the success being handed to you on a silver platter. That is absolutely okay for you to celebrate, and nobody is trying to downplay any success of anyone or like celebrating anything. My problem is for the students who are actually going through it. I don't want to say the SHIT, but the people who are going through it during these periods, and how the perspective in terms of the outcome and holding on to their grades and their successes and their performances in terms of as far as academia is concerned, how you hold that outcome is where we need to shift the dynamic, guys. Because ودي أقول لكم قصة. I would like to tell you guys a story of how like I said in the beginning of the video, Mim Kama Sheba, having gone through the pipeline of the 844 system, I have been primarily affected in terms of how I used to believe and grades, and how I used to carry myself in terms of, although I couldn't outwardly, not necessarily couldn't, but I didn't like, alhamdulillah, Allahumma lak alhamd, I didn't like to boast about my grades. I didn't like to talk about my grades. And if you've been following out through the vlogs from year 1 all the way to year 5, if you've been following through my videos and the vlogs and everything that I've been putting up on YouTube, you will realize that not in a single video have I literally ever mentioned a grade that I had in uni, except for the fact that I usually just mentioned, guys, we passed or we failed. I think for an instance I did say for one time when I failed an exam, I remember mentioning the marks I got on that particular exam, but generally speaking, I never ever mentioned the grades I usually got in school. And while in that particular time I didn't have this perspective, it's actually in my very final, I would say, semester of uni, like where this shift in perspective really came onto me. And this is where the story comes in. So like in medical school, actually for all cadres, I think there is an exam at the end of it all, like for us, for me specifically, for our journey, at the end of my 5th year, we had a final qualifying exam. And this exam can be termed differently depending on what institution you go to, depending on your curriculum, depending on the slang that you use in your uni, depending on the school, how the cultures are. So for us, it was the final qualifying exam. As it is, the final qualifying exam is divided into 2 portions. We had the written exam where we had to write exams, and then we had the orals exam where some people will call them the practicals, other schools will call them OSCEs, other schools will call them Vivas, other schools will call them whatever names they want to call them. So this exam was sort of divided into 2 weeks. So 1 week we'll do the written segment, and then the other week we will do the OSCEs, we'll do the practicals, and this other portion of like the practical aspect, we will do face-to-face orals, and also we will do practicals in the hospitals like OSCEs, Euro, CLACA patients, the usual OSCE type kind of examinations. So up until this point, I was someone who, I would say, and this is me outing myself, guys, in terms of being transparent and actually changing the narrative in the academic world. I used to be the kind of person who used to hold my grades very high, not in the sense of like I will go out and say, oh, I got an A, I got a B, I got this, I got that. No, not in that particular sense, but I held myself and my standards very high, which I do up to date, alhamdulillah. I'm very competitive in nature, alhamdulillah, but I don't tend to show my competitiveness to the extreme of actually letting it be a point of conversation between me and somebody else. Of course, for my close people, my close friends, we usually talk about grades and how they affect us and everything. But like generally speaking, that's no kind of like I don't like that kind of discussions, and I generally just don't like them, you know, because they perpetuate some kind of things that I really don't settle well with me. And al-aynu haqq, you guys, the evil eye is real, you know, kama vile Mtume sallallahu alaihi wasallam atuambia, al-aynu haqq, and kullu dhi ni'matin mahsud, everyone who has ni'ma is, people will get jealous of you, and yani all these factors are culminating towards like all this way of me trying to live with my grades. But personally, when it came to a personal perspective, I used to be the kind of person, I am still I hold my grades and like how I perform in terms of anything. I would say I don't want to just limit it to academia, but like generally speaking, I hold myself to very high standards. And for a very long time, I let this idea of like what I got, like how I performed, or like what the outcome is, really define me, and like put it at a very high pedestal, that at the point of like where if it was a good result, then everything was good, and if it was a bad result, everything was bad. While I know the fact there's a very thin line in between, like, oh, you know, or like even if you're like mentally very well, it's not like you're really well to the point that bad grades won't affect your day. Of course they're going to affect your day, but like the extent to which they're going to affect your day is where the perspective shifted for me. And the reason is like, now going back to our story, where like up until the point where we were almost sitting for our final qualifying exams, I remember like this period was a very, very, very stressful period, you guys. And I have had sleepless nights in medical school, but this period, oh my god, subhanallah, it used to be the worst period. Because the thing is, for those of you who are not in the medical field and want to gain a little bit of a perspective in terms of how these exams are and everything, it's like everything you studied from the word go in medical school, like the minute you set foot in medical school up until the last day you study whatever you're going to study in between, whatever cadre you are currently in, everything is testable, everything is examinable, and everything can be tested in the exam, to the point of like, it's very, very hard to study, to say that I am actually studying for this exam. Well, there are a few tricks here and there you can use to apply to study for this exam and actually maximize your performance. But it's the kind of exam where, like, if you are not consistently studying from the day one, or like from year one, if you are not consistently studying and like reviewing materials from previous years and looking at materials every now and then, it's an exam that most likely you are going to fail if you didn't put in consistent efforts. And so like for me, during this particular time, I was having a very difficult times in terms of what I was going to study. Alhamdulillah, I got a few guidances here and there. I asked around in terms of how to study for these exams. I asked for help. I did have several discussions with my friends and everything, like in terms of how we were going to navigate through these exams and everything. And alhamdulillah, Allahumma lak alhamd, like if you've watched the videos, you actually have seen the process and you've actually seen us through the exam, and alhamdulillah, you've seen that alhamdulillah we've passed the exams, Allahumma lak alhamd. But the thing is that during that particular time, you guys, I was at some point in the beginning of the dedicated study period, I was really, really onto like this is it, guys, like this is it, this is a make or break exam. It's either I fail. If I fail this exam, then I'm a total failure, and if I pass this exam, then that means I'm going to be a very good clinician, I'm going to be very good at whatever I'm going to do. So guys, ilifika point where the outcome of this exam actually just took on the better part of my thinking, my mental health, to the point where studying was just another thing I couldn't do. It was just the point where, like, when I thought about studying, it was just like, I have to do this. You know, it used to be such a stressful moment, you guys, and I was telling myself, la, this cannot be it. It cannot be it. So it really, really got me thinking. And I remember, alhamdulillah, while I was in med school, I really enjoyed watching other people going through the journeys and everything, going through similar journeys like med school. Saying it is that I really do enjoy watching other people's vlogs and documentaries on med school. Hence the reason why also like I started my own YouTube channel is because like while I was starting in first year, I used to look for people. I used to watch a lot of vlogs of people in medical school, but it was very rare to find somebody who was actually in Kenya and was doing med school. If you found maybe the videos, somebody uploaded 1 video, 2 videos on their channel, and they were not really that consistent. So it wasn't really, I wasn't really able to see what the journey in medical school was from a Kenyan perspective. So it's like, why don't I become that kind of person? So alhamdulillah, and if you didn't know, that is one of the reasons why this channel was just created and it came to existence, walillahi alhamd. And so like I was just like, nilikuwa nafikiria some of the things that I watched, and I remember like watching some of the US medical students. Some of them were in the US, for you to get licensed as a medical practitioner, as a doctor, actually you have to do the series of the USMLE, step 1, step 2, and step 3. Now arguably previously, before it was changed to pass or fail, the step 1 was arguably the most hardest exam out of the 3-step exams that you had to do, and the level of difficulty was just over the roof. So like in terms of how people prepared for these exams, people usually, what we'll call an earlier, like people cry while studying, people go through it a lot. And like what I was living through that moment when I was preparing for my final exams was literally almost similar, guys, to what these people were going through when they were studying for the state point and everything. So like when I was looking at these vlogs, I came upon one of the YouTubers, and like they said, like, at the end of it all, I want to be able to say that for this exam, no matter the output, I was able to put in my best, and that was it. And that particular statement, you guys, like, it really got into me during that particular time, and it really shifted my perspective in terms of like I just thought to myself, like, I literally have no control over the outcome of this exam. And given the subjectiveness of the OSCEs sometimes is that you don't know what patient you're going to get. You don't know which board you're going to land into. Of course, we had like 4 to 6 internal medicine wards, and they were all divided according to the several systems. We had a CNS ward, we had a gastroenterology, we had a pulmonary ward. You didn't know where you were going to land for that exam. You understand? It's just like a lecturer goes in, takes a quick look at the patients, assigns bed numbers, and you're just given, you'll go to bed number 12, you'll go to bed number 30, you'll go to bed number 62. Do you know even who is there? You don't even know what patient is there. So it was not necessarily a standardized kind of exam where you are able to like use statistics and like predict your kind of performance in this exam. And like that was the kind of situation, to the extreme point where sometimes like you'd had numbers being written in very small papers, and then you just do the ruffling and like you shake, and then you're literally presented with all the papers and you're asked choose, and you pick one, and it's like bed 13, and you go to bed 13, and you find that the patient has bilateral femur fractures. That's what I got for my case in surgery. Anyways, so like that thought of the subjectiveness of this exam and it not having a particular roadmap or like a particular way that you can actually predict your results depending on how you study, perhaps, or like if you check a few boxes here and there. No. And to add on top of that, we had internal and external examiners, you know? So maybe you could say, I know a particular lecturer. When I get a particular lecturer, I know they like their histories to be presented in a very summarized fashion, and lecturer B likes their histories to be presented in a very detailed version. No. In that particular day, you could get an external examiner. And that external examiner is somebody you didn't ever know. I got examined by external examiners, and they're people who I just saw on the day of the exam. I was like, okay. So the thought of it really literally just made me think in the sense of like, there is only so much I can do for this exam when it comes to my own efforts, and I have zero control over the output. So let me just focus on whatever is doable and whatever is within my scope to actually do and bring me sanity and peace of mind, while getting to that place of actually understanding this type of belief and accepting it and actually living it. Like, I've accepted the fact that I have no control over the outcome. I have control over the process itself. Getting there wasn't easy, guys. Even me sitting here and trying to explain to you guys and trying to make you guys have a shift, for example, just enlighten you guys or like shed light onto another point of view and a shift in perspective, it's not like it's something that just happened that way. I switched on a light, I just went to my brain and switched on some. No, it wasn't that easy. It was really difficult for me to actually come to that point. And thinking about it, like, subhanallah, it was really difficult, guys. Coming to the point of like, yeah, Like, all I want to be able to say at the end of this all, whether I pass or fail, is that I was able to give it my all. Like, I was able to actually put my best foot forward. Like, that is all I care about. Like, getting there wasn't easy, but alhamdulillah, at the end of it all, I was like, yeah, I really got to that place, alhamdulillah, and it really, really saved my sanity. Allahumma lak alhamd, bifadlillah azza wa jal, yani, because it was something like, if I went on and on about the rabbit hole of thinking about the results and the outcome, I don't know where I would have been in terms of my mental health. I don't know, Sarahan. I really don't know. So that is something that I really, really wanted to share with you guys, because focus on the process and leave the output. In as much as the grades do matter, celebrate them when you pass. Be sad when you actually don't achieve your grades. It's important. We are human beings. We have to feel these things. But don't let the outcome dictate the very much element of your current and present moment, to the extent that you are incapable of actually doing things that are going to actually make you, one, feel better, and two, affect the process. Because if you let the thought of the outcome affect you to the point where you are not able to study, then you're actually, who are you helping? Unamsaidia nani by you thinking about it to the extent that it actually affects your mental health and you're not able to study? Because it's high time you actually shifted that perspective. Like, the outcome is the outcome, and I'm in 100% control over the process, and what I do right now is what actually matters. So, like, yeah, like, I remember, like, the point where things used to get really, really hard. I used to tell myself, my goal out of this entire thing is to be able to say that at the end of it all, I did my best. Sarah, yani, because the stakes of this exam was so high that even if you try to not think about the output, or like think about the outcome and what grade, or like if you're going to pass or fail, you are still going to think about it. So, like, I would rather think about it, but know that my goal in this is to do my best, and that's all. Because you guys, that is actually really, really problematic. Because I know you guys have really understood, and if you've sat through this video up until this point, I think at some point you're really understanding what I'm actually saying. And like, yeah, and alhamdulillah, Allahumma lak alhamd, alhamdulillah, like, you guys have seen the videos, and if you haven't seen the videos, just go and watch them. Like, we did pass our exams, Allahumma lak alhamd, and it was just a very joyous moment. Alhamdulillah, we celebrated, alhamdulillah, we graduated uni, Allahumma lak alhamd, and كان صراحة وقت جميل جدا يعني. It was a very good time, and it was a very good feeling having known that we actually passed. But what I would really like to highlight is that do not put the outcome on a very such high pedestal to the point that it actually affects your process, and in a place where you're not in control over the output or like the outcome, it's not really worth it to make yourself go through all that mental turmoil and that all mental turbulence just for what? For a process you have no, for an outcome you literally have no control over. You have control over the process that we're not even talking about, because kusoma, that's your responsibility. Like, working hard, like showing up and doing the revision, going for the discussions and everything, that's your responsibility. But then, are you able to say that you're actually, because you don't know what questions you're going to be asked in the exam. You don't know how your state during the exam is going to be. You don't know who is going to mark your paper. You don't know who you're going to encounter. Even patience, you could have all things, you guys. You could be in the right mental state. You could have a very good examiner. You could have the best weather during that day to do the exam. But the patient is uncooperative, so what? You guys tell me, so what? What do you do in such kind of a situation? Anyway, guys, my point through all this really long waffle is that believe in the process, trust the process, be part of the process, and tell yourself that, like, shift your perspective, that change your goals, have output goals. So this is a non-negotiable, because if you don't know where the direction you're headed to is, you're going to get lost in the middle of the road, you know? It's where you're going to have semesters you're not planning yourself, you're not doing your best, you're just dilly-dallying and everything, because you don't have a direction, you don't have a place where, you don't have a target of something you are aiming for at the end of the semester, or like at the end of the academic year, or like at the end of your course or anything. So have an output target, but don't let that be a defining moment in terms of what you are actually doing throughout the process, and what you're actually thinking about, and what you're actually holding yourself onto, because you don't know what the outcome is, but you know what the process is. And if you don't know what the process is, you could literally do research about it, ask about it, and know what the process is and do something about it. So I personally changed my perspective and shifted my perspective from, I don't know how I'm going to do in this exam, to the point of, like, I want to be able at the end of it all to be able to say that at the end of it all I did my best. Like, that was my primary goal out of this entire process of me going through the exam and everything. And Allahumma lakal hamd, it really changed my perspective, and it really shifted my a very big turbulence and turmoil in terms of my mental health during this particular exam period. And Allahumma lakal hamd, يعني بعد this shift, يعني alhamdulillah, things started flowing, although the turmoils were still there, but like the waves were a little bit smoother, and I was able to navigate through the remaining process of school and everything through a sort of a balanced turmoil and everything. And this is something that I've had people talk about in other episodes, in other like podcasts and things to do with academia and everything. And people normally just talk about, like, there's this new thing that I personally never like had of before finishing school, but it's something that as I go through life, as I go through these processes, not just academia, it's something that I do actually try to incorporate in my life and life processes and everything. It's something around celebrating the process, you know, like in uni, for example, or like in school, or like my recent, like giving an example of my most recent I would say academic involvement was me through 2 internships. So like the process of, we would wait normally until we are like, we've received our licenses for us to say, oh, alhamdulillah, I've done something, or like we would wait until we graduate is when we celebrate. But something new I learned is that even before the graduation, even before getting the results, take the time in between the results to actually celebrate the process, because you actually going through that turmoil, you actually going through that process of the academia and that entire stress and everything, you actually going through the semester and making it through up until the last day of the semester and actually writing the final exams is something to celebrate on its own. And I think that's a dynamic shift and a perspective shift that we actually need to have and instill in the younger generation, and for lecturers, teachers, parents, and even us people who are navigating through the academic processes need to actually pay attention to and look into on a further, like, I would say, scope, because it is alarming how much academia can affect our mental health, and people not doing something about it, or like even a small shift in perspective, is really something that can go a really long way and can have an actual impact in the lives of people, not just in the academic life, but like generally in the quality of life and their mental health and wellness as human beings. So wow, I can't believe that has been 39 minutes of me actually waffling, but there we are, guys. that is all I had to say for today, and I know it's been quite a long anime. I think I should start a podcast because it's not normal for people to actually come and talk for what 39 minutes, going to 40 minutes. Alhamdulillah, Nakin, Alhamdulillah. Sometimes I do find a lot of joy, you guys, when I'm creating these videos because صراحة يعني it's something that I genuinely care about, and it's something that I know even one person can benefit from this video. So it truly brings me joy to make this video. So Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much, guys, for sticking along. If you've been here for these 40 minutes, thank you so much. If you've been here for the 40 minutes and you haven't subscribed yet, kindly consider doing so. Give this video a thumbs up, share it to your group chats, like groups with your friends, family, teachers, fellow lecturers, whatever, before making these videos. So like this is just TMI, just too much information segment of the video. Before I embarked fully on like coming onto online and like making these videos and everything, I used to be the kind of person who would be like, what if so and so see this video? What if perhaps my lecturer saw this video? But I was like, do I really care? So yeah, I used to be so afraid of like the fact that people could see these videos and like share them with other people and like whatnot. But at this point, I know this is a beneficial video, and I know it's going to change the lives of not just one but maybe 2 people or like 3 people. So be it. You know. So Jazakumullah khair. Thank you guys so much for watching. Kindly consider subscribing, like I said, if you haven't. Like this video, share it with your friends, family, your teachers, your WhatsApp groups, your parents groups, and everything, anywhere that you think this video could actually be of benefit. And thank you guys so much for sticking along. And if you've made it this far, I usually have like some sort of like comment feel good at the end of the video, like on the comment section down below. If you've reached this far in the video, comment feel good in the comment section down below to see how many of you guys have actually watched this video up until this point. Otherwise, I have nothing left in me to actually waffle about today. Jazakumullah khair, and inshallah we'll see each other in the next video. Jazakumullah khair. Ma'as salam.